Hello, and welcome to the Deceleration podcast. My name is Marisol Cortez, and I'm the co-editor of Deceleration. We're an online journal writing at the intersection of environment and justice within the watersheds of the San Antonio River and South Texas more broadly. Today, we're excited to talk with Mary Elizabeth Cantú, founder and director of the Spare Parts Center for Creative Reuse. This July, Spare Parts is celebrating their 10th anniversary, and they reached out to Deceleration to invite us to profile their decade of work using the ethics of reuse and sustainability to assist underfunded educators in promoting creative work and critical thinking. We gladly accepted the invitation, intrigued by their cultivation of alternate relationships to waste and the way these new relationships open up space for thinking about the ecological and the human labor devalued within capitalist economies. As such, Spare Parts occupies this unique terrain in the landscape of San Antonio's arts and activist spaces. Part arts and craft thrift store, part public education advocate, part circular economy thought incubator, and part anti-plastics initiative. So they're doing something at once deeply material, but also deeply theoretical. And I think we don't talk nearly enough about the ideas, the philosophy that animates kind of our more day-to-day activist work in the community. So as my 2-year-old would say, let's do it. Here is Mary Elizabeth Cantú, founder and director of the Spare Parts Center for Creative Reuse.
I was a teacher with no materials for my art class, and workshop was coming up, and I didn't have any materials. So a friend suggested that I go visit the plastic supply folks, and they had enough materials that they didn't want to throw away and couldn't sell. They filled up my car full of these materials, of vinyl and plastic, all different colors, and they said to come back with a U-Haul. And at that point I realized that this effort is bigger than me. And what we did was that summer got some interns and announced that we were going to start accepting pre-loved materials, creative and art materials for teachers. So we filled up like four rooms full of pre-loved materials. We sorted them, and teachers at the end of the summer were able to, we registered 100 teachers from all over the city, and we let them carry out as much as they could that day. So Spare Parts was founded as an event annually during the summer to bring materials to educators. Then people ask, well, what do we do with some of these materials? I know what to do with color pencils, but what about these plastic doohickeys? What can I do with them? So that's how our programs were born. Across the city, we started educating people and teaching people how to reuse all kinds of materials, how to give inspiration to things that might not be as exciting, but with the right teaching can be very exciting and I wouldn't say life-changing, but behavior changing. What we want to do is change the behavior in the way people see things, and with Spare Parts, we want them to use them creatively.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. Your mission emphasizes that sustainability aspect, right, through creative reuse. So I'm going to ask you about both parts of that mission, sustainability piece, but then the creative reuse piece. Sustainability, I know, has this sort of huge, sprawling meaning. Like, it means a lot of different things depending on who's you're asking. What does it mean to you?
Sustainability for me is about creating cyclical means for interacting with what we work with or use or happen upon in our community. So for something to be sustainable, it can't be immediately thrown away, or it can't have an additional purpose. It has to be healthy for our environment. It has to be able to be repurposed in some way. You have to be able to, it goes even into foods, what's in season, eating what's in season, being aware of current issues in the news that have to do with the environment. It's a lifestyle, but also, the good thing about spare parts is that we use sustainability through not only our efforts, but through our day-to-day operations.
Mm-hmm. So I'm kind of hearing you talk about sustainability means moving away from an economy that's sort of linear.
Yes.
Things are extracted from the earth, and then they're used, and then they're disposed of, to an economy that's circular or cyclical instead.
Yes.
Where we continue we'll close the loop, right? The idea of closing the loop, and transforming the economy itself away from disposability, so that the culture itself, or society, or the economy can, I guess that's where the idea of sustainability comes in, is we can keep going. We're not going to burn out. We're not going to throw ourselves away, right? Because of the way that we're doing things.
Exactly. There is a cradle to grave, old model of design, mm-hmm. And that is antiquated and not sustainable. You can't have that anymore in our current state. So, like you mentioned, having things that are able to stay in our system is the way to go. Not buying new things, repairing what you have, mending your clothes, going to clothes swaps, using your library for books instead of buying new books. There's so many ways that you can infuse sustainability in your lifestyle.
Mm-hmm. So then I want to ask you about the reuse part, which a little bit you've touched on already. And specifically what I'm interested in, I think a lot of times sustainability or recycling or reuse ideas or practices, we associate them with the scientific or the technical or maybe political or governmental knowledge, right? But what does it mean to promote those things through the arts instead, right? Is there something that creative reuse can do that other styles or more technical modes of reuse can't, or maybe don't?
I think, and this has been proven, reuse increases your way of divergent thinking. Divergent thinking is when you have multiple answers for a problem or a question, versus our standardized tests where there's only one right answer. So reuse strengthens your divergent thinking, and artists, I feel like, are not only creative within their work, but they also can provide problem solving in other industries and committees or facets of our neighborhoods and communities and government and things like that. So I don't write off artists as just being creative people in their world, but smart thinkers for what we can do moving forward to better our world. Mm-hmm. It's an entry point for problem solving, and beautifying our communities without hurting hurting our communities and our environment.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I love that idea of, like, the ability to imagine, like that sign said,
Trash is the failure of imagination.
Yeah. So much of, I think, what I've encountered when I've worked as an organizer, as a community organizer around environmental justice issues, is like that failure. And you're going head to head with, like, whether it's the city or whether it's corporate actors, but there's just, like, the imagination, the thinking, the critical thinking feels like so limited and so rigidified, like there's only this way of doing things, but why?
Exactly,
right?
Exactly. I use the word why not? Why can't we do this? What's keeping us from trying a different way? Spare Parts is about, breaking down, antiquated ideas of even how we run our organization or display something, for example, something as small as that. But we bring together those people who are super imaginative, creative. They inspire me to rethink everything around me. Mm-hmm. So I'm looking at, some of our materials in our store, our reuse center, but I translate that to how can I better problem solve in my life. Mm-hmm. There's like I mentioned, there's not one answer for a lot of problems or questions, but Spare Parts, I think, is one of the organizations, artistic organizations in town that inspires people to think outside of their perspectives and to come here and be inspired by others and share ideas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you for that. That's really, I love that. I just love that idea. Your work also has, you talked about it from the beginning. It has this. It's rooted in this sort of educational component, right? And it still has that in that you seek to divert these materials that are headed for the landfill and to reuse it instead creatively to support public schools, right? Which we know chronically lack, in particular, arts education opportunities, in addition to lacking all kinds of other stuff, right? Can you talk about that aspect of your mission? How do the environmental ethics of reuse and closing the loop also become a solution to these entrenched problems of access to the arts in the public schools?
I've found that teachers get very little in terms of funding for materials, but also there's a focus, not even outside of the art classroom, there's an emphasis on teaching to the test. And the test doesn't have manipulatives, doesn't have hands-on activities. It's not about experiential learning. It's about stressful moments for everybody, unhealthy learning, and we've kind of lost, and working with an iPad or a tablet is important. Technology is very important in the classroom for students to learn and interact with, but we're missing the tactile, experiential classes, education, the outdoors experience, and Spare Parts hopes to fill that gap in learning, getting back to basics in a way, but making it affordable to schools. One thing that we want to do this summer is become vendors for all of these school districts so that we can so teachers can come and use, and we get we invoice school districts instead of teachers having to pay their own way here. So that's what I'm working on right now, making it an option for school districts to come in and take materials, because we just, we want to be able to infuse, reuse, to make it a regular part of people's, experiences in the classroom.
And what has been the response from like the school districts, or are you running into bureaucratic barriers like, oh, we can't accept like reused materials, or are they like, oh no, that's amazing, we love it?
People are ecstatic when they find out about us. And we do have a school district in town that comes to us regularly for their needs creatively. So the great thing about, I think, the way we founded Spare Parts was that we reached out to the teachers and started educating them about reuse. They worked within their classrooms to teach their kids about reuse. But I think a lot of school districts will be supportive when we are able to be a vendor. For some people, it's a new experience, but every experience that we've had with people that have come through our doors, it's been very positive, with the way we display things, the way we've branded ourselves, the way we look on, on social media. Everything that we've done has received very positive response.
And then lastly, my last question. So in another life of my own, I did a lot of research and writing and reading about how we imagine and relate to waste, and how that shapes what we actually do with it, where we dispose of it, in whose communities and whose backyard. So I was really interested in logics of disposal, what we get rid of, and cultural logics that allow us not to think about what we get rid of, right? And not to think about the way the economic, kind of upstream dynamics of overconsumption and just all of that stuff, right? I was very interested in that, and I still am. And I continue to be really drawn to the idea that there's something about engagement with everyday objects of consumer cultures, and especially with the everyday objects that are designed to be discarded or to become waste. There's something about engagement with those materials that inspires us, like you say, to revision or think critically about the economies that produce them. I'm wondering, it sounds like, I'm guessing it does, but I'm wondering if that idea also has resonance for what you do, or if you want to kind of
Sure, no. My grandparents lived on a farm, and sustainability and the objects that were the things that they used daily were very important to them, because there wasn't a dumpster or a landfill really to to dispose of things. So it was just a culture of sustainability without it being popular, or it was just a way of life. But also we are lucky or unlucky in this world, in this country, because people can make their trash disappear. Once you put it in a garbage bag or in the trash can, it just goes away. Someone picks it up and it disappears like magic. But in some countries, you live in it, and that's as a result of our society. Trash gets disposed of. In other countries, it gets shipped off and goes to poorer countries. But depending on your economic background, you are closer to that disposability than others. And we're here at Spare Parts, we're very aware of that, and we strive to help others understand that relationship of the disposability. And you're right, things are cheaper to buy new again than to repair, and that's intentional because of capitalism.
Yeah.
And that's really unfortunate that we're at a point, where things are cheaper to buy new, and to replace. When we go into schools, I have a PowerPoint that shows pictures of e-waste and challenges those students, those kids, to think about, do they really need that new phone, the latest earbuds or things like that? Because what you're doing is adding poisonous things to our environment. And then we go into artists and how they're teaching others about the challenges of e-waste, for example, and what they're doing through their art form to educate others about those issues. We're very aware of that here, and even in San Antonio, respecting people's cultures of being able to repair things. And there's in Spanish there's a word called rascuache. Have you heard of rascuachenes? Rascuachismo, which I've learned. One of the phrases or one of the definitions is this Mexican or Hispanic ingenuity, which is about fixing things in a creative way, piecing things together to make it work, and honoring that in different cultures and learning from them to see how they interact with the things around them too.
Yeah. And I was going to say, too, just going back to your point of what happens in this country where waste seems to go away versus other countries where it doesn't, or it's more evident. So that earlier project I was telling you about, the working title of the book was The Materiality of Disappearance. So in other words, we think things go away, but they really don't. You had signs up about what percentage of children have nanoparticles of plastic in their blood. That's waste remaining with us, right? But we don't recognize it. There's a logic, there's a cultural piece that's in our heads about, we're privileged to have our waste go away, but it doesn't.
It doesn't.
Or it goes in somebody else's community. And, the other signs about the percentage of the incinerators that are located in communities of color, right?
Yes, exactly.
So that the power itself is the ability to think that your waste goes away, but it turns into something else and stays with our bodies, or it goes into somebody else's community.
Or animals, digest,
exactly.
ingest it.
Or
Yeah,
it ends up in the stomachs of animals, or it ends up in the middle of the ocean somewhere. And so part of the work that I was trying to do, and that I see happening here as well, is how do you make those logics visible to people? How do you make the invisible or the seemingly invisible visible? And so, it's very exciting what you're doing.
And I think the things that we have here at the center are not necessarily the dirty diapers or the muddy bottles, but if you look around the center, everything that you see was potential trash, and we've lifted it, elevated. We've said, hey, no, it's not. It can be reused again, and it's okay. It's okay. So we're and our programs teach that as well too. There are a lot of artists that use detritus to make their artwork, and our hope is, since we're pretty new at the center, although it's our 10th year of being Spare Parts, we're new here at the center, is to support those artists and invite them to come and sell their artwork or goods, so that we can support those folks that are thinking about those issues in their work.
That's cool. And one last little spin-off question. I'm sorry, because I was
sure.
just thinking about something you said. Do you find that even being able to reclaim, the part of the waste stream that's not necessarily like the most polluting or the dirtiest or whatever you want to call it, does help people think about like all the other stuff that they use and throw away that maybe can't be reclaimed? I mean, for example, like we can reuse plastic, but it's still plastic, or it's still, it's still dependent on a petroleum extraction process that polluted a community, or, after we turn it into art, like, it's still going to take however many years to biodegrade.
400, 600 years.
Do you find that, like, people's consciousness of that, the bigger issue, is raised just by being able to sort of, like, focus on...
We hope that's the long term choices that people, or thoughts that people internalize. And I'll run into people that have shopped here or that have done our programs, and this is honest to goodness truth. That said, oh, Miss Mary, now I didn't get that cell phone because we did that art project and we learned about. And it's amazing that they're able to transfer what they're interacting with or experiencing here or through one of our programs. Or, Miss, now I've decided to carry a water bottle. So we do see the positive outcomes of what we're doing. Yeah. Sometimes it's hard to measure, but it is happening slowly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or I'm not going to shop here again because I know I can go to you, or I can do this. I've learned how to make paint with dried up markers because of you, so I don't have to buy watercolors new again. Every little bit helps. Every little bit helps.
Yeah, for sure. And then down the road, eventually you'd want them to be like, Miss, I'm going to go protest, like, bringing this plastic company to San Antonio.
Exactly.
That's the big goal, right?
Exactly. Little by little.
Yeah.
It makes a difference.
Yeah.
If we weren't here, imagine how things would be, we're making a difference with what we can, and we're growing, and we hope to do even more.
Super. Thank you so much, Mary.
Thank you.
I really appreciate taking the time to talk to us about what you do, and it's really rich and interesting and like unique, I think, in the landscape of San Antonio. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Hey, it's Greg Harmon at Deceleration.news, just listening in on this dialogue with Mary Elizabeth Cantú and Marisol Cortez. If this sort of conversation is important to you, I would encourage you to come on over to Deceleration.news and check out the site if you haven't visited before. If you're interested in spare parts, there is a 6-minute guided tour, a virtual tour of the store by Mary Elizabeth. I encourage you to check that out on the post where this podcast will also be housed. If you haven't yet, I invite you to become a Deceleration supporter for $1, $5, $10 a month, whatever it is. You name the level of support, and you can do that through our website, Deceleration.news, or at patreon.com/Deceleration. And I look forward to future work and community.